We're not going to be talking about the Trump administration. We're not going to be talking about members of Congress themselves, but we are going to be talking about something that is firmly within the politics meets the law arena. It's just in a slightly different way. And that is that when Congress reached that agreement on funding the budget, they included in there something about the hemp industry. And the argument is that it's effectively going to make illegal many drinks, many marijuana in certain places, although that already is a state-by-state issue. And it's confusing, right? It's super confusing. And the reason it's confusing is because a perfect example of how confusing it is the same senator who created the legislation in 2018 that changed the law to allow for THC to be included in various products is now the one coming out and saying we have to change the law. And that senator is Mitch McConnell, who is basically saying that there was a loophole in the legislation in 2018 that he thinks has now corrupted their initial intention with regard to this. But when I say it's complicated, I mean there's like different kinds of hemp, and there's different kinds of THC, and there's different percentages, and so what I really want to do is I want to understand this, right? Because I kind of understand it, but I don't totally understand it. And that's what we're going to do for the hour, and I'm going to take your calls on this as well, because I do think that this is a multi-billion-dollar issue. Someone who does know a lot about this is Jonathan Miller. He's the general counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, and he is a partner in charge of a D.C. law firm called Frost Brown Todd. Jonathan, thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having this, Dan.
All right, so look, let's take this from the beginning. All right, we have got plenty of time, and my audience is sophisticated, so you can get wonky with us. You can get detailed here. Let's start with what happened in 2018. All right, tell us what happened in 2018, how the law was changed.
I'd love to just briefly go to 2014 because
go to 2014.
Yeah, the 2014 Farm Bill provided for a pathway for the sale of hemp and hemp products in a pilot program initiative. And so states were allowed to experiment with hemp.
Now let me just take one. I'm gonna pause you for a second. Explain to us what hemp is, right? Okay. What is hemp? Because there's even confusion, I think, among many as to what is the definition of hemp.
Yeah, and hemp has so many different definitions, and that's part of the problem here. So when we used to think of hemp, we used to think of the fiber part of the hemp of the cannabis plant, that the part that would go towards rope and canvas and uniforms, and nowadays is used for plastics and construction materials and clothing. So that is what we used to consider hemp. In 2014, the definition of hemp was changed into law to say that anything that has these cannabis plants that have less than 0.3% Delta 9 THC on a dry weight basis, anything below 0.3% is hemp, anything above 0.3% is marijuana. So that happened in 2014, and around 2015 or 16, people were able to figure out a way to use the plants that had less than 0.3 to create CBD products. And CBD really took took hold. And there were a lot of questions as to whether or not CBD was actually federally legal. So in 2018, McConnell came back to the table and not only took those pilot programs and made them permanent, but he also said that we're not just going to define hemp as the plant itself, but we're also going to define its cannabinoids, extracts, and derivatives. And those are three big words that bring in CBD into the picture. So I know there's a lot of talk about.
I think again, I'm taking us back a little bit. But CBD, distinguish CBD for us from THC. I mean, I really want this to be sort of like a hemp law for dummies, right? So make sure when you refer to the CBD, explain to us the difference between CBD and THC, et cetera.
Yeah. So the cannabis plant has a few dozen what are called cannabinoids. And so they make up the within the flower of the plant, they make up the part of the plant that helps with your health and wellness, or potentially gets you high. The two most famous cannabinoids in the plant are THC, which is the cannabinoid that gets people high, and there's CBD, which has been used in a lot of settings for pain relief, anxiety relief, etc.
Right, and CBD is nowhere near as controversial as THC, right?
Correct.
Right. So again, take us through. So between 2014 to 2018, this is an issue with regard to CBD or THC or both.
Well, it's a little of both, because there was a desire to support the legality of CBD products. But the discovery also in that time was that the most popular and most effective CBD products also had a little bit of THC in them. There's something called the entourage effect, that if you have a full spectrum and use all of those dozen cannabinoids, that is what gets you the stress relief, the anxiety relief, the pain relief. There are products called CBD isolates that are they pull out of the plant the CBD and CBD only. And that's about 5% of the marketplace. But it's not very popular because it really, for most people, does not provide the effect that they're looking for when they're getting a CBD product.
All right. And we're talking to Jonathan Miller, General Counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. So in 2018, Mitch McConnell tries to change this farm law in an effort to help farmers, right?
Correct. That was his whole point, is helping Kentucky farmers, particularly Kentucky farmers that were in the tobacco space and were, losing a whole lot of business because of the decline of that industry.
So he wanted to ensure that these farmers could continue to grow and cultivate this hemp as long as it had below a certain amount of this THC.
Correct.
And so now, since then, and let me actually play what Mitch McConnell said, because McConnell's position is that the previous law has been abused by people. This is number 4. This is Senator Mitch McConnell a couple weeks ago on the Senate floor.
The language I helped secure in the Agriculture Appropriations Bill addresses a serious concern regarding the manufacturing and selling of unregulated, intoxicating THC products nationwide. I led the effort to legalize industrial hemp through the 2014 pilot program and the 2018 Farm Bill. Unfortunately, companies have exploited a loophole in the 2018 legislation by taking legal amounts of THC from hemp and turning it into intoxicating substances and then marketing it to children in candy-like packaging and selling it easily accessible places like gas stations and convenience stores all across our country. So children end up being the unknowing consuming of these poisonous
Five.
and being sent to the hospital at an alarming rate.
McConnell has taken the position that the solution to that was what, Jonathan Miller? Before I ask you to evaluate and assess what you think about what he's doing, what did he do?
So what he said was that, and first of all, I agree with 99% of what he said in that statement. So that was an accurate statement. What we disagree with is his solution to it. So what his solution was is, let's say, that we are going to only allow for products, hemp products, to be out in the marketplace that basically have zero THC in them. Zero THC. Now they use a figure of 4 milligrams of THC per package. There aren't any products out there that are between 0 and 0.4 milligrams per package. So really what he's saying that is at any level of THC in it, it now becomes a marijuana, which is, as you know, a federally illegal product.
Okay. And that has now been sort of snuck into this Senate bill. I guess the first question I'll ask you before I ask you about the politics of it is, what do you think the solution ought to be? If what you're saying is that 99% of what Senator McConnell said is accurate, I assume that you believe that the focus should be on regulation rather than banning, right?
Yeah. So when McConnell passed his 2018 Farm Bill, there was specific language in there that basically confirmed that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, had the regulatory authority to regulate hemp products. That day, that night, the FDA Commissioner, Scott Gottlieb, came out with a statement saying that we are going to start investigating a path towards regulation. It is now 7 years later, and they have done practically nothing. And a couple years ago, they basically said, well, we actually need more statutory authority to do anything. So we have now had a completely unregulated marketplace from the federal level. I've testified before Congress 3 times, and each time I concluded my testimony saying, please regulate us. You very rarely see an industry go into Congress and say, we want to be regulated, particularly by the FDA. Mm-hmm. But we recognize that this was a problem and that we had a lot of good actors who were self-regulating, who were abiding by FDA standards for these kinds of products, but a whole lot of bad actors out there that weren't. And so what McConnell is doing is throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and instead of targeting the bad actors through regulation, is eliminating all the good actors as well, which we think, frankly, only empowers the really bad actors who are now going to sell this stuff on the black market. I mean, Dan, this is a $28 billion industry. There's demand for it. People want these products. They're going to find them. But instead of going through an FDA-approved process, they're going to be going through the black market to get these products if this legislation stands.
We're talking to Jonathan Miller, General Counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. We'll take your calls, by the way, at 866-967-6887. All right, now let me ask you about the politics of it. This has passed for now. Politically, what happens now?
Well, so the good news is the appropriators who put this language in there realized that this is going to be controversial. And probably realized that making these kinds of decisions in a back room was not the most scientific or effective way of going about changing policy. So they put in that this would not take effect for 365 days. I think we've got 356 days left. But in that period, the industry, as well as a whole lot of new people who didn't realize that what was happening and who are demanding change, we believe that we will be able to get a fix to replace this ban language with strong, robust regulation.
Is it more Democrats on your side or more Republicans?
Well, it's been a bipartisan issue. And again, to start off with, McConnell was our champion. Rand Paul has been our champion for a long time. Over on the House side, Jamie Comer, who he and I worked together on getting hemp legal in Kentucky to begin with, and Morgan Griffith, who's a Freedom Caucus member. A lot of good Republicans that support.
A lot of Kentucky folks.
Yeah,
a lot of interest in this in Kentucky.
Yeah. But when there was a vote on the Senate floor, whether to, and Rand Paul put an amendment saying, let's strip this language from the bill that reopened government. The vote was 74 to 26, with only two Republicans voting for Paul, Rand himself and Ted Cruz. The Democrats, about two-thirds of them supported us. I don't think that is saying that the Republicans necessarily were against us, but they were confronted with a decision whether or not this was not actually on the substance of the bill, but whether to table the discussion. And so they were having to decide whether to go through more discussion and debate and time on this hemp issue, or reopen government and have SNAP benefits go to people and let the commuters get to airline flights. So it put in an impossible choice, and most Republicans decided they're going to stick with this reopening government.
And so, again, to be clear, if the law that's currently in place moves forward in 350 whatever days, what are the businesses that are going to be wiped out?
So this is the important thing. So everything that is treated that is above 0.4 milligrams per container is now federally illegal.
And you're telling us that everything is above that, right?
Well, so
Sorry.
95% of stuff is. I was talking about these CBD isolate products that have zero THC. They would be below that. But again, they're not a very popular product. But there's other language that would probably take us another show to go through and would really bore your listeners, that talks about how hemp can be extracted and THC levels of those extractions that our farmers and extractors believe would make it impossible even to sell the CBD isolate products. So really, we're talking near 100% of hemp products currently on the marketplace. And to be clear, that your grandmother who uses CBD for her sleep or her aches and pains, to get CBD would be committing a federal crime, Schedule I drug equivalent to fentanyl or heroin. That's how CBD would be treated.
Again, right. And that's why, again, I'm trying to make sure we're all on the same page about CBD versus THC. So you're telling us that not the THC products, but almost all of the CBD products on the market today would be illegal under this new law?
Yeah, depending on how you interpret the intermediate section, most would be illegal. Possibly, if you interpret it the way I just did, it could be 100% of them could be illegal because of the extraction penalties.
What the extraction penalties? Just explain that.
I'm sorry, because of to extract the CBD, it's a process that the THC in the plant spikes to a level in the intermediate stages that would be considered illegal. Language.
I see.
Yeah,
I see. All right, so here is Representative Andy Harris. He's a Republican from Maryland. He supports. I think he supports the language that was in the current laws. Number 6.
Additionally, the bill closes the hemp loophole that has resulted in the spread of unregulated, intoxicating hemp-derived products that are being sold online and in gas stations and corner stores across the country. Many of these products are accessible and attractive to children, resulting in thousands of calls to U.S. poison control centers, with more than 30% involving children aged 5 years and younger.
Jonathan Miller, General Counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, is basically telling us that, okay, fair enough, then regulate us. And the thing that I find to be kind of interesting about this is they refer to these intoxicants, right, as if just being an intoxicant is somehow criminal. And yet, there are arguments to be made on both sides, but some would say that alcohol can be more dangerous. I'm not sure that I agree with it, but there's certainly an argument to be made, and there's no doubt that alcohol is an intoxicant.
Yeah, and not to bash alcohol or the alcohol industry, but if you look at the facts and figures in terms of deaths and accidents and ruined lives, there's a whole lot more in the alcohol space than in the hemp space. It's not even close. And McConnell's real point is intoxicants are bad. Intoxicants that get to children are worse. I know of a lot of children that get into their parents' liquor drawer as well. So it's not able to do 100%. But
All right.
there are good laws in the alcohol space that punish people that sell these products to minors. There are laws in some states that do it for hemp, but there's no federal law that says that you can't sell one of these products to a minor, and that's the leading point that we would like to see in regulation.
All right, I've got a full call board here of people who want to talk to you about this. But final, real quick, what do you expect is going to happen? Do you expect to be able to, within the year, have the law changed?
So the first thing that we are trying to do as an industry is to take that 1 year period and turn it into 2 years. To get a significant regulatory piece of legislation passed through Congress takes time, and we're not sure 355 days will do that. But also, even more importantly, our farmers are going to have to decide around February or March whether or not they're going to plant hemp in the field. And if they think that there's going to be a ban, then they won't. And so we are hopeful that as part of the continuing resolution that will probably, who knows, but there'll be a continuing resolution sometime at the end of January to continue to keep government opening. We hope that that is a vehicle to get that extended for another year. And while that's going on, we are working very closely with folks like Morgan Griffith, who I mentioned before, Freedom Caucus member, chairs the Health Subcommittee of the House Energy and Commerce Committee that has jurisdiction over these issues. And then over on the Senate side, we're working with Ron Wyden, who's a liberal Democrat from Oregon. Yep. And they both are going to be introducing in the coming weeks bills that would robustly regulate these products.
All right, your questions and comments now for Jonathan Miller. Start with North Carolina and John. John, how you doing? What do you got?
Hey, Dan, can you hear me?
I got you, John.
Yeah, thank you so much, because this can't be covered in a soundbite. So you're the first one I've heard to really take it on. This is just so devastating. I enjoyed beer for years, and due to blood pressure situation, I had to quit a year ago, and I've been using hemp, and now it's just like, I'm Cali sober, and this is so cool, and I'm healthier than I've ever been. And I just wonder, has there been any good reporting on who's the lobbyists against this? I mean, is this the legal marijuana people and the alcohol people combining to say, let's illegalize hemp? And I love your guest, and I think he's making great things like, keep it from children, but give it to us adults. Why are you going to plunge us back into alcohol? Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Let's go to Ralph in Connecticut. Ralph, how you doing? What do you got?
Hi. Just a quick primer. If you eat or drink THC products, the onset is slow and the effects are long-lived. However, inhalation, the onset is rapid and the effects are short-lived. People should have that basic information, I think. And
but which way? Therefore, what? I mean, so you've now summarized the different kinds of effects that it has, but how does that impact your thinking on what's happening?
Oh, well, I'm all for taking it off this Schedule 1 and, just giving people real information like I did so they're safe and can make the right choices. And it's common sense. You keep things, any other medicines and stuff like that out of the reach of kids. It's not rocket science.
Thank you, Ralph. Corey is in Illinois. Corey, what's going on?
Hey, Dan. Hey, Jonathan. Question is, does the state now have to criminalize hemp in order for it to be illegal? So would Illinois have to criminalize it and then turn around and try and regulate it, or could they do nothing?
Good question. So, Jonathan, with this current law on the books, how does that impact a state's ability to make its own determination?
Great. No, that's a great question. So I'll use Kentucky as an example because we've been talking a lot about Kentucky, and that's where I'm sitting right now. So Kentucky has a law passed on the books that robustly regulates these products and sets a THC limit of 5 milligrams per serving. So you're able to go to a liquor store, most liquor stores in Kentucky, and buy a 5 milligram THC hemp beverage. I compare those to a light beer in terms of the effect on me and others. So this federal law would not change that. And conceivably, if you're a Kentucky company that grows the hemp in Kentucky, makes the products in Kentucky, and sells it to Kentucky stores, you'd still be able to do it. It's the same current model as the marijuana industry, where everything has to be done in state. However, if this bill becomes law, that anything that goes over state lines, again, would be a Schedule I penalty enforced by the DEA. And it's going to be really hard for a company to make a product to only sell in Kentucky stores. You don't really have the scale to produce something that's going to be economical and effective. So while there would continue to be states where conceivably hemp could be sold, it would be just a dramatic reduction of what we know is the industry right now.
Corey, thank you. Let's stay in Illinois and go to Al. Al, how you doing? What do you got?
Dan, how are you?
I'm good. What's up?
Your guest is perfect about this subject. I have a brewery on the south side of Chicago, and I'm very close to the cannabis industry and the hemp industry. And just to make sure people know, the cannabis industry is for medicinal and recreational for dispensaries. The hemp is also available in those realms, but also out at farmers markets and stuff like that, just so everybody's correct, right? So the one thing that we have found in Illinois, let's go ahead.
Was that a question? It sounded like a question. Jonathan Miller, is that accurate?
It depends on the state. Some states more strictly regulate where you can sell these products, but again, without federal regulation, in some states without any laws, it could be sold anywhere.
All right, go ahead, Al. Yep.
So the point I would like to keep making is that I work closely with a company that makes cannabis products for that in Illinois, and they also make hemp products that distribute to other states that do. Where like Minnesota, and there's a lot of breweries in the country right now with alcohol sales being down, that based on these hemp regulations in the Farm Act, they're allowed to make drinks to make up for sales and also the real estate of their tanks not being filled with beer. They're making these drinks and they're doing a really good job of it. But I feel like in this the state of Illinois, we're so used to a 3-tier distribution system that is one of the things not regulated, and I think maybe you guys were hitting on that a little bit already. And it is interesting that I've dealt in cannabis events with hemp sales, that I have people that I know sell directly to liquor stores with their hemp products, CBD, THC products, whether they're gummies to drinks, and it is a bit of a wild west for those companies.
That's exactly the point that Jonathan Miller's making. I mean, he just said that he testified in Congress numerous times, and he said, regulate us, please. And I think that that's the issue we're talking about, right, which is ban versus regulation. Kathy's in Florida. Kathy, how you doing? What do you got?
Yeah, I've been smoking pot on and off since I was younger. They will get it no matter where. I remember, but it has gone from like giggle pot to now I have a medical card here in Florida, and it's so strong that if you smoke it, you're not going anywhere. And I've tried the Delta 8, and friends of mine have tried it, and it gives you a headache. A lot of people, everybody's different, but I think a little regulation on how much wouldn't hurt. I would like to get back to getting the giggle and have a little bit more anxiety getting it, because, and another thing I just wanted to add is that your guest might know about who's lobbying against this would possibly be these medical places like True Leave, where I get mine down here. As a veteran, they did not used to charge me for my once a year, and now they charge me, and the state gets $75 a year. So it is a moneymaker, and it is to their advantage to keep that away from being legalized, because then they get the bulk of the money.
Well, you ask a good question, Jonathan Miller. Who are the primary opponents to the U.S. Hemp Roundtable on this?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and you would think that there might be a whole lot of family health folks that were, trying to fight this from a health standpoint, thinking that it was going to endanger the public, but you don't see that. The folks that have been funding these efforts come from two leading industries. One, as your guest just called in, the marijuana multi-state operators, the ones that run the dispensaries in a lot of states. Not all of them. Some of them are actually into hemp and supportive of us, but a few of them have pulled their resources to fund an organization called ATACH, ATACH. I forget what it stands for, but they were the leading lobby on the Hill to try to ban hemp products, which they see as competition for their own. The others are some in the alcohol industry. And again, not all of alcohol. You've heard from some of your listeners where there are folks, particularly distributors and wholesalers, who find a great deal of value in selling hemp beverages. And you see these liquor stores putting hemp beverages all over their shelves. But some of the brands are opposed. And there was a letter that was prominently distributed the week before that was signed by folks like the distilled spirits groups, the bourbon folks, and the Beer Institute and some of those others. So there's a real divide in the alcohol industry, and there are some who, again, see their market share declining, particularly see young people moving away from alcohol towards something like hemp. See a lot of our biggest customers are middle-aged women when you think of those hemp beverages, and they're supplanting their glass of wine with a hemp beverage. And
I'll tell you, look,
as an opportunity,
I'll tell you. I own a winery, and I completely support this idea of regulating versus banning, as Jonathan Miller is laying out. Let's do this. Let's take a break. We'll come back with more of your comments and questions for Jonathan Miller, who obviously is an expert in this area. Coming back with more calls in a moment. Senator Mitch McConnell, who both spearheaded a law in 2018 that opened the door to hemp, CBD, THC being more legal, now trying to close that door. And my guest, who's the general counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, Jonathan Miller, has been making the argument that there should be regulation, not a ban. And that's what we've been talking about for the hour. Let's go right back to some of your calls. James is in Virginia. James, what do you got for Jonathan Miller?
Yeah, I think it's ironic that isn't Rand Paul? He is diametrically opposed to McConnell's suggestion because of the economic hit it'll have on thousands of small business people. But I've been following this since it started about a few years ago. I'm a user of some of the products, but I've always been flabbergasted at the lack of regulation. I mean, I said this is insane. And didn't this all come from the fact that there was such a glut of CBD oil, the market crashed, and somebody figured a way to make it profitable again, i.e. the farmers in Kentucky were really getting their butt kicked.
Jonathan Miller?
Great point. So what happened was in 2018, the Farm Bill passes. In 2019, farmers all across the country, and certainly in Kentucky, saw this as a gold rush or a green rush and started growing for CBD all over the place. At the same time, the FDA started saying, well, while this is, we're looking at regulating it, but until we do, we're not going to be providing you with any certainty about the product line. So we discourage people from using these products. So we saw this big spike in supply and a decline in demand. And you saw farmers having, and I should mention as well that we had a lot of big box stores and the big food and beverage companies looking at adding CBD to their shelves or to their mixtures. And they wouldn't do it because of the lack of certainty from the FDA. So you saw that big spike in supply, big decline in demand, prices crashed, and farmers were left with warehouses filled with hemp biomass, CBD biomass, not able to sell them. So some of them got clever and figured out ways to convert that CBD biomass into more intoxicating products. Some of those products are very healthy and These hemp beverages that we're talking about are generally converted from CBD biomass, but then there are other bad products being made from that have super high levels of THC or manufactured in ways that did not meet with the GMPs of the day. So it was both a great boon and also a great problem that emerged, and we blame it all on the FDA for not regulating.
James, thank you. Let's go to Ohio and Trey. Trey, how you doing? What do you got?
Hey, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. It just seems interesting to me that, octogenarians are the ones that are, talking the most about this. And maybe it's because Mitch McConnell forgot 2018, but it just is giving me some reminders of when we had congressional hearings over social media and people calling it the Facebook because they didn't understand how the internet worked. So it just seems like it is giving the same type of energy. And, I wish.
Well, let me ask Jonathan Miller about that. John, are you seeing a divide amongst members of Congress, put aside politics, based on age?
Some of our biggest opponents are of the older variety. Senator McConnell certainly fits that category. But what, again, is ironic, and I think the caller was getting into this, is that so many of our users, and maybe user is the wrong word, so many of our customers are elderly. We have, particularly the CBD products have been really embraced for arthritis or for sleep or for anxiety. And another big customer of this are veterans, folks that served in Afghanistan or Iraq or even Vietnam, who use these products as for their chronic pain or for PTSD or other types of things. So there might be a divide of older members of Congress not getting hip to these issues, but the average consumer tends to be a whole lot older than the image of a teenager trying to get high.
Trey, thank you. Aaron is in Virginia. Aaron, what do you got?
My question is, does this affect the medical marijuana and recreational marijuana dispensaries across the country?
So directly, it doesn't. This is all about hemp. But as we've been learning more about the unintended consequences. There was a conference of the marijuana industry in Washington, D.C. this week, and a lot of the folks were saying, we get our supplies for our products from the hemp food chain. And if the hemp food chain tightens up or goes away, then we're going to have to find supplies elsewhere. It's going to lead to shortages and increased prices. And so in the end, it can hurt a lot of these marijuana companies and customers who are looking for relief through the marijuana dispensaries.
Let's go to Tennessee and Matt. Matt, what do you got for Jonathan Miller?
Yeah, hey guys, interesting conversation. I wanted to ask Mr. Miller about the opposition to legalizing hemp or THC on a state level. I'm down in Tennessee where they're actively trying to make THCA, Delta 8, Delta 9 illegal. And so beyond the, maybe safety concerns or the spirits lobby like you talked about, what legitimate arguments are you hearing against legalizing this? Is it a morality thing? It seems to me that there's a demand for it and it would bring a lot of money into the state.
Well, you would think that there was a morality issue, and not to draw too big assumptions, but folks that use those kinds of judgments tend to be a little more conservative or Republican on these issues. What we've seen in polling is that conservative Republicans are as strong, if not stronger, on these issues than liberal Democrats. There was a big battle in Texas where the Texas legislature banned hemp products, and then Governor Abbott came in and vetoed that ban and instead put in a regulatory process, just like we're trying to do at the federal level. And the polling showed that it was 72%, maybe even higher, of Texans and a higher level of MAGA Republican Texans who opposed the ban and supported regulation. So it really does cross party lines.
Talking to Jonathan Miller, General Counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, about this new legislation that was snuck into the funding bill that effectively will ban THC and much of the CBD. Let's go to Texas and Mark. Mark, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey, Dan. Nice to talk to you again. I'm 67, and I consider myself kind of a connoisseur of marijuana. Grown my own marijuana for 35 years or so. Grow a couple plants a year. And here in Texas, man, this hemp stuff is I'm glad that they're going to regulate it some because, you know, I've been to Colorado, and in Colorado, you show your ID, you're in the store by yourself, there's no one else there except the person, you know, that's working with you, and you buy what you want and you leave. In Texas, it's like a convenience store, these hemp places, you know, and it's just millions of products and flower hemp. But my question is, okay, marijuana that I grow, it's very sticky and resiny when you press it between your fingers. The dry hemp flower is not. It's not resiny at all. It seems to be dry. My question is the THC that's in the dry hemp flower that they sell in the shops here in Texas, is that THC natural or is it added?
It depends. So there are folks that sell natural stuff, and that in many states is still legal under state law. But then there are others that use chemicals on it that make it non-natural or synthetic. And again, we've got to crack down on that through regulation. And I applaud Governor Abbott in Texas for coming up with developing a regulatory program and being able to let people know. The biggest challenge of these stores you're talking about is that you see thousands of things and you don't know what any of them stand for, and many of them will have a THC level in their products that don't match up with what is on their label. And again, that is just why it's so important that we get regulation, not just at the state level, but the federal level, get the FDA involved, do third-party testing to make sure that people are selling what they say they are.
Let's go to Maryland and Terry. Terry, how you doing? What do you got?
Hi, thanks for taking the call. So I order a drink called Wink that I can get, and it's I just learned through this conversation and looking it up that it's a hemp-based, derived, but it's 2.5. And so I'm feeling like it's kind of semantics. Like
yeah, so that
the definition. Go ahead.
Well, I just say that hemp product that you're referring to, 2.5 milligrams, probably isn't getting you high. It may be a little bit, but it is that's more like a near beer kind of thing. But it would be under this bill, if the language is made effective a year from now, it would be considered a Schedule I federal narcotic akin to heroin. So that is the challenge here.
But conceivably, the marijuana industry could then just add the THC from marijuana into the drink.
Right. So there will be, if we lose this battle, the marijuana dispensaries would still be able to sell THC products to customers, but they would still be federally illegal. And there are a lot of folks who want to go to their health food store to get CBD or want to go to their liquor store to get hemp beverages that don't want to set foot in a dispensary. There are states like Texas that don't have dispensaries and states like California that have a ton of dispensaries, but there are a lot of areas of the state where you can't, you're 100 miles away from dispensaries. So this is that's not going to be a solution for most Americans. And certainly it doesn't help.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't get really high, but I do feel it.
Yeah. All right. Terry, thank you. Jonathan Miller, thank you. General Counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Appreciate you taking the time and taking the questions from our listeners.
No, I appreciate this. Done a lot of interviews, but nothing this comprehensive. This is a great program and appreciate being on it.
Take a break. Come back with a couple more calls after the break. I started the show by saying this really wasn't classic law and politics, but it really is, talking about the legality of hemp, THC, CBD, based on a new law that was put into the funding bill. And I've been talking to an expert and advocate for hemp who has been saying that they welcome regulation. They just don't want it to be banned. Leslie is in North Carolina. Leslie, how you doing? What do you got?
Hey there, Dan. I just thought you might think it was kind of interesting. I'm a 57-year-old woman, and I met with my doctor not too long ago, and I asked him what he thought about alcohol use versus cannabis. And he said, "Oh, Leslie, you are the end of the drinkers." And I said, "Well, is that a good thing or a bad thing, for the people younger?" And he said, "It's a very good thing. Not that cannabis is necessarily good for you, but he said he does not see near the medical interactions that he does with alcohol." Just thought it was interesting.
No, I think that is interesting. And look, and here's the only area where I challenge those conclusions, because I've seen that and I've discussed it with friends, et cetera, is there has been an enormous amount of research on alcohol and the impact of alcohol and on alcoholism, et cetera. And there hasn't been as much with regard to hemp and THC. And, I'm not saying it's not true, right? I happen to believe that some of the sky is falling about alcohol warnings have been a bit overwrought. I think that in most cases it relates to alcohol abuse. The new studies say, well, no, it's not just about alcohol abuse. It's about even a moderate use of alcohol can increase a variety of medical conditions. I don't know the answer to, can moderate THC use lead to more medical conditions? I think we don't know that because there haven't been enough studies done. And so I say this to say I wouldn't be surprised if in the end your doctor's right. But I also think some of the sky is falling warnings about alcohol really do relate more to people who abuse alcohol than to light or moderate alcohol use. So I'm one of these people who supports a good glass of wine and also a good CBD gummy.